My wife cheated on me with our mutual friend, then told our kids I abandoned them for another woman. For years, they hated me, until my son finally asked what really happened, and I told him everything. Hello Reddit I+ here. My name's Graham Whitmore, I'm 48 now, and this is the last time I'll ever talk about what happened between me, my ex-wife, and our kids. If you've ever wondered what betrayal feels like when it's weaponized, when love is used against you, this story might answer that. How it all fell apart. Back in my early 30s, I thought I had everything figured out. My wife, Lydia, and I had been married for 12 years. We met in college, built a small photography business together, and raised 2 kids. Tobias, who everyone called Toby, and Mara. They were my entire world. Lydia was the kind of woman people gravitated toward. Funny, clever, and charming in that effortless way that made you forget to question her motives. I never imagined she'd destroy the very family she claimed to adore. But about 7 years ago, I found out she was having an affair, not just with anyone, but with Darren Holt, one of our mutual friends. He'd been to our house countless times, barbecued in our backyard, and helped Toby with his soccer training. I discovered the affair by accident. She'd left her tablet on the kitchen counter, and a message popped up, not even hidden, saying, "I wish you were here instead of him." That single sentence unraveled my life. When I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She just looked at me with this cold indifference and said, "You stopped being the person I needed." It was like watching a stranger wear my wife's face. The divorce was brutal. She painted herself as the victim, said I was distant, controlling, emotionally unavailable. She cried in court, and the judge believed every word. She won custody. I got weekends, supervised at first, as if I were some dangerous man. And the worst part? She told our kids that I had left her for another woman, that I had abandoned them. For years, they believed it. Toby refused to answer my calls. Mara would cry and hang up whenever I tried to speak. I sent letters, birthday cards, even tried showing up at school events. Lydia made sure security escorted me out each time. I eventually stopped fighting, not because I gave up on them, but because I realized every move I made only made Lydia's lies stronger. Fast forward to earlier this year. It was a quiet Sunday morning when someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, Toby stood there, taller now, older, but carrying the same fire in his eyes that I used to admire when he was a kid. He didn't smile, didn't hug me. He just said, "We need to talk." He stepped inside like he owned the place, looked around, then crossed his arms. His tone was sharp. He accused me of destroying our family, of breaking Mom's heart, of leaving for another woman. He said I'd turned Mara into an anxious mess, that she cried every night thinking I hated them. He wasn't there to talk. He was there to punish me. I let him rant. I'd been waiting years to hear their side of the story. His voice cracked when he said, "You ruined everything." When he finally ran out of breath, I said quietly, "Toby, there are things you don't know, things your mother never told you that only made him angrier." He shouted that I had no right to badmouth Mom, so I took a deep breath and decided the truth had waited long enough. I told him I didn't abandon anyone, that Lydia had cheated, not once, but for over a year, and that her affair wasn't some random fling. It was with Darren Holt, our mutual friend, the man he used to call Uncle Darren. Toby froze, his jaw clenched. For a moment I thought he'd hit me. Then he said I was lying, that Darren was family. So I told him what really happened, how I confronted Darren, how the man laughed in my face and said, "She deserves someone who actually listens to her." The smugness in his voice had burned itself into my memory. Toby didn't say anything. His eyes darted to the floor, his hands trembling slightly. I told him, "If you don't believe me, ask her, but ask when she's not ready for the question, when she can't rehearse her answer." He stood there for a long moment, then muttered, "If this is true, everything changes," and then he left. A week later, I got a call from Lydia's father, Mr. Kellen. He came to my house the next morning, visibly shaken. He said, "Toby talked to me. He told me what you said." I didn't confirm or deny. I just told him to speak to his daughter. Apparently, he did, and it didn't go well. Lydia had exploded, accusing him of taking my side and spying on her. But when her father pressed her about Darren, she didn't deny it. She went silent. And that silence told him everything he needed to know. Soon after, her entire family started pulling away. Her sister, who'd always suspected something, finally spoke out. Even her mother, who'd once sworn I was a monster, stopped defending her. And Darren, he vanished, deleted his social media, moved out of town, and left no trace. A month later, Toby called me again. His voice was quieter this time. He asked if he and Mara could come stay for a while, just to get away from Mom's drama. When I picked them up, I could see how much they'd changed. They looked tired, older than their years. The first few nights they barely spoke, but slowly, they began to open up. They told me Lydia had been guilt-tripping them for years, crying, accusing them of betraying her any time they wanted to see me. She'd told them I was manipulating them if they ever questioned her version of events. When Toby asked if they could live with me permanently, I didn't even hesitate. I told them, "This house is your home. Always has been a new start." The house I'd been living in was small, fine for one man, but not for a father rebuilding a family. So I sold it and bought a bigger one on the edge of town, a place with sunlight, a backyard, and space for both of them to grow into who they were supposed to be. Moving day was chaos. Boxes everywhere, Toby hauling furniture, Mara decorating her room with fairy lights and plants. But beneath the exhaustion was something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. We started over. We cooked dinner together, watched movies, laughed again. For the first time since the divorce, it felt like home. Lydia, of course, didn't take it well. She called, screamed, cried, accused the kids of abandoning her. When Toby told her, "We just want peace, Mom," she went silent for a long time before hanging up. Her father, Mr. Kellen, eventually stepped in and told her to stop weaponizing guilt. That was the last I heard about her. She stopped contacting me altogether. The conversation that ended it. All one evening, while unpacking the last few boxes, Toby looked up and asked, "Dad, do you ever regret not telling us sooner?" That question hit hard. I told him, "Every day. But I also know if I'd done it back then, you wouldn't have believed me. You needed to see who she really was on your own." Mara nodded quietly. "I'm glad you waited," she said. "It would have broken me as a kid." That was the first time I let myself cry in front of them. Because after years of being painted as the villain, I finally felt seen. Not as the man who left, but as the father who stayed, even when no one saw it. It's been almost a year since that day. The kids are doing well. Toby just started college and Mara's obsessed with photography just like her old man. Lydia and I haven't spoken since, and I've made peace with that. Sometimes the truth doesn't need to be shouted from rooftops. Sometimes it just needs to survive long enough to be heard. And when it finally is, everything changes. It had been about 6 months since Toby and Mara moved in with me full-time. Life had finally found its rhythm again. The air in our house didn't feel heavy anymore. There was laughter, normal arguments about chores, late-night pizza runs, all the small, beautiful things that used to feel impossible when their mother's shadow lingered over everything. But peace, as I learned, never comes without resistance, especially when the person who once thrived on control starts to lose it. At first, it started small. Messages from unknown numbers. "Tell the kids I love them. They're making a mistake listening to you. One day they'll see what kind of man you really are." I ignored them. I'd learned that responding only fed her need for attention, but then she started showing up. The first time was on a Saturday morning. I was working on the deck when Mara came running in, pale and shaky. "Dad, Mom's here." I stepped outside and there she was, Lydia, standing on the sidewalk, wearing sunglasses and holding a box of cookies like she was some kind of visiting neighbor. "Graham," she said sweetly, "I just came to see the kids." "You don't have to make this awkward," I told her calmly. "You can call or text me first like a normal parent. You don't just show up unannounced." She smiled, that same condescending smirk she used to use in court, and said, "You're still trying to control everything, huh? Some things never change." When Toby stepped out behind me, she immediately softened. "Toby, sweetheart, I've missed you so much. Can we talk? Just the two of us?" He looked at her with this painful mix of anger and sadness and said, "You've had years to talk, Mom. You just never told the truth." She tried to play the wounded victim, eyes watering, hand over her heart. "You can't believe everything your father says. He's twisting things to make himself look good. He always does." I didn't say a word. I just watched Toby turn and walk back inside, without another glance at her. That was the first time I saw real fear flicker across her face, because in that moment, she realized her words didn't hold power anymore. Over the next few weeks, she doubled down. She called Mara at night, leaving voicemails about how lonely she was, and how she didn't deserve to be forgotten. She sent Toby long emails about how families should forgive, how adults make mistakes too. When that didn't work, she tried a new tactic: sympathy through sickness. She told them she wasn't feeling well, hinted that something was seriously wrong with her health. Toby panicked and called me saying, "Dad, what if she's really sick?" So I did what any responsible parent would do. I called her myself. She answered on the second ring, her voice fragile and trembling. "I didn't expect you to care, Graham." I said, "What's going on? The kids are worried." She sighed dramatically. "I've been unwell. Stress, maybe more." The doctor says it could be serious. Do you want me to call your doctor? Help arrange something? I asked, trying to be civil. She hesitated, then changed the subject completely. Maybe if I could just see the kids more, it would help. I miss them so much. That's when I knew. There was no illness, just manipulation dressed up as tragedy. I told her, if you're sick, focus on getting better. Don't use the kids as medication. She hung up on me. The next phase of her campaign was public image rehab. She started posting old photos on social media, family vacations, birthday parties, writing captions like, "A mother's love never fades." Even when others turn her children against her friends who didn't know the full story began reaching out to me, asking if I'd really kept her from her kids, I didn't engage. I'd learned that silence sometimes screams louder than explanation. But Toby and Mara saw the posts, too. One evening, Mara came into the kitchen holding her phone, eyes red. "Why does she keep lying?" she whispered. I put a hand on her shoulder and said softly, "Because lies are the only thing she has left to feel powerful." Toby muttered, "It's pathetic." And for the first time, instead of crying about her mom, Mara laughed, not cruelly, but like someone finally realizing the monster under their bed was just a shadow. The breaking point came 2 months later. It was late afternoon. The kids were inside studying, and I was grilling in the backyard when I heard a car door slam. Lydia stormed into the yard like a hurricane, face flushed, eyes wild. "You turned them against me, Graham," she shouted. "You poisoned them with your lies." I calmly put down the tongs and said, "Leave, now." But she kept going, voice cracking. "Do you know what it's like to lose your children? To have them hate you because of you?" I said quietly, "They don't hate you. They just finally see you clearly." Her expression twisted. "You're a manipulator. You always have been." That's when Toby stepped out onto the porch, phone in hand. "Mom," he said coldly, "if you don't leave, I'm calling Grandpa." The look on her face changed instantly. Panic, fear, then resignation. She turned without another word and got into her car. The next day, I got a call from her father, Mr. Kellen. He apologized for her behavior and said she'd checked herself into therapy to work on her issues. I didn't hold my breath, but I appreciated the effort. Peace. Finally, months passed without another word from Lydia. The silence was healing. The kids began to thrive. Toby joined a local soccer league and started volunteering at a youth center. Mara got accepted into an art program. Her photography was breathtaking, raw, and emotional, like she was capturing her healing in every shot. Sometimes, late at night, I'd find them both sitting on the couch, laughing about old memories, the good ones, the parts of our family worth remembering. And I realized something profound. Even after all the lies, the manipulation, the chaos, truth still found a way to rebuild what she tried to destroy. One last message. Last month, I received one final message from Lydia. It simply said, "I hope one day you'll tell them I loved them, even if I didn't show it right." I stared at it for a long time before replying, "I already did." But now they understand what love should actually look like, and that was the last time I heard from her. Now, a year later, our home feels light. There's no tension, no secrets, no walking on eggshells. Just the sound of music, laughter, and life moving forward. Sometimes when Toby and Mara talk about their childhood, they mention the bad parts with sadness, but they don't dwell on them, because they know now that healing isn't about pretending the past didn't happen. It's about refusing to let it define the future. And for the first time in a long time, I can finally say, she can't touch us anymore.